of Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series.
Yay.
How you doing today, Tim?
I'm doing okay. It's way hot right now, but I'm doing okay.
It is. It's super hot right now. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Is it too early to count down until winter?
I already have. So here we go.
All right. Well, before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. So we assume that you've read the entire series and there will be spoilers. You have been warned. Also, if this is the first episode, we are happy that you joined us. Welcome.
Yay.
And if you missed our first episode where we talked about what we're going to do here, just a reminder, we do not pretend that we are Wheel of Time experts.
Oh, no.
We're just people who really enjoy the series, and we want to talk about it. We want other people to talk about it.
Absolutely.
So we will probably make mistakes. We will probably mispronounce things, but that's okay.
Definitely.
Move right past it. We just want to foster a friendly community where we talk about this thing that we all mutually love.
I agree.
So having said that, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
In this episode, we're going to be talking about chapters 5 and 6 of The Eye of the World.
Okay.
In these chapters, we're going to see life on the Althor farm, and then Trollocs.
Gasp.
Chaos ensues, and family secrets will be revealed.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I might have been a little melodramatic there, but yeah.
Chapter 5,
Yeah.
man, wow.
Yeah. So, chapter 5 is titled Winter Night, and the icon for this chapter is a spooky tree.
Ooh.
Why don't you start off the summary for this time?
Okay. Rand and Tam get back to their farm, and Tam immediately does a perimeter check in case the Black Rider had come by. He even checks the well to see if it had been poisoned. After ascertaining that all was well at the home front, Rand and Tam settle in to get some chores done while it is still light out. Both men are uneasy and keep weapons at the ready, but they get their work done without incident, and we get a glimpse of life on the farm. Around twilight, Tam calls an end to the workday, and they go in for some dinner. Tam surprises Rand by locking the door and shocks him even more by pulling out an old sword that Rand didn't even know Tam owned. They're just getting settled to eat when there's a loud pounding on the door. The door bursts open to reveal Trollocs, who are part man, part animal, evil killing machines. Rand throws the hot tea kettle at the first one, and Tam grabs his sword and charges the Trollocs, telling Rand to run. Rand hides in the woods, and Tam finds him after killing at least 3 Trollocs and leading the rest away. But Tam is hurt. He got cut by a tainted Trolloc blade, and he gets an immediate fever. Tam is in bad shape, so Rand has to return to the farmhouse for supplies to help his father. He's scared to death, but he takes Tam's sword with him for protection. When he gets home, he sees that the Trollocs have destroyed everything and killed all the livestock. He believes there are only dead Trollocs left, so he goes to the house to get what he needs, but is surprised by a Trolloc named Narg, who is only playing dead. Narg talks to Rand and tells him that he won't hurt him and that a Myrddraal wants to talk to Rand. Rand may be scared, but he's not stupid. He tells Narg, okay, knowing that the beast is lying, and sure enough, Narg charges Rand. Miraculously, Rand is able to get Tam's sword up in time to kill Narg. Rand is freaked knowing that a Myrddraal is on his way to the house to talk to him, but he pulls himself together and gathers up any supplies he could find. He goes to the barn to find Bella gone and the cart he needed to carry Tam to the village broken. He hacks off the shaft so that he can create a makeshift litter for Tam. The chapter ends with Rand's confidence that if he can get Tam back to Emmonsfield, everything will be fine. Rand is certain that 9 will heal Tam, and they will be safe there.
Whoa, so much happens in this chapter.
It really does.
So let's dig in. As I was going through this, the first thing I kind of noticed as I get back to the farm is that Tam and Rand are actually really good farmers. We know this because they know their animals. Rand knows that no one's been to the house because the sheep are completely calm.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I grew up around sheep and stuff, so like sheep do get scared very easily. So if a stranger had been about, they'd all be huddled somewhere and all nervous. But nope, they're just doing their thing. So,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So Tam does this perimeter check. And he even checks the well water before relaxing and getting, started with the rest of the day. And I mean, it's not something a farmer does. It's something a soldier does.
Yeah.
And, you know, we learned that Tam was this, like, totally cool, like, high-ranking soldier in the Illinois army. And it just goes to show, like, once a soldier, always a soldier. It's ingrained in him to be this thorough, and he can't really get away from that.
Yeah, assuming your water's poisoned is not. Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you grew up on a farm. So talk about this whole like domestic farm life bit that we get at the beginning of this chapter.
Okay, yeah. So the first time I read this, and even now when I read through this, I'm like, I really kind of resonated with Rand's experience coming back to the farm, because this is all stuff I did as a kid. Like, I grew up on a farm where we didn't have a cow, we didn't have horses, but my friends did, and they were all next door neighbors. We had ducks and ducks and turkeys and rabbits and pigeons.
That's New York.
Yeah, wrong place. But we had pigeons. I don't know how I did that. Anyway, so we raised animals. I ended up, we slaughtered our own animals, we ate animals, and so that is just all part of my experience. And watching Rand come in and check and all these things.
I have heard your farm stories over and over throughout the years, and reading this section, having to like shear sheep for wool to get your clothes, and grow your own vegetables, and kill your own meat, like, I would never have been able to survive in ye olden days. Like, there's no way. I would be dead. Like, I could not have survived like this.
I think you would have figured out a way to survive, but I don't so. You would not be the person you are today. Yes. Which I love.
I can't even grow my own bell peppers. Like, I'm not going to be able to slaughter a cow or a pig. Like, it's not happening. It's not happening, bro. It's not happening.
So Rand is doing it's a farm. There's always something to do. You got a hole to dig. You've got wood to chop. You've got something to paint. You've got a wall you got to fix because the animal ate through it. I mean, there's always something that you got to do on the farm, and so as Rand goes and starts chopping wood, I kind of have this great he gets into the Zen kind of like thing where he's chopping and as he chops and
it's like the repetition of movement is like meditative.
Yeah, and I've totally done that. I mean, I didn't have an axe when I was a kid. We had a sledgehammer and a wedge, and we just drive it through to split the log. But it would still, it's put the wedge on there, dive it in. 2 swings, next log. 2 swings, next log. And you just get in this rhythm. Literally, there were times when I would just lose track. I would have like this whole pile of wood split and be like, oh, now I'm tired, but I still have to carry this all back to the house. Great. But
it's also crazy how much wood it takes. Like, I remember we went to your parents' house because they still have
like a wood burning stove.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just so much wood. I mean, I've never had a fireplace or wood burning stove that took wood, so I've never had piles of wood. Like, we had a fireplace when I was little, but we used those like Duraflame logs.
Yeah.
So
and you grew up in Orange County. Most of those.
Yeah, we didn't run the fire.
Most of those had gas lines that ran the flames too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But just so much wood. It was like piled almost to the roof, and just there was so much wood.
Yep.
And that's a lot of chopping.
Yeah, and that's
so
enough,
much chopping.
And that was enough wood to get my parents through maybe 1 or 2 months.
Yeah, it was so much.
It's a good thing they live in a desert. It doesn't get that cold for very long. Anyway, so that was life on the farm.
Speaking of cold, we should talk about like we talked about in the previous chapter. Here, Robert Jordan peppers in all these indications that the winter has been going on.
Oh, yeah.
Like, way longer than it was supposed to. And it's taking its toll. Like, the vegetables, nothing's coming up because the ground is still frozen. And the stores of their resources are getting smaller and smaller.
And the thing that caught my eye as a person who grew up with chickens, Rand makes his comment that the chickens were hiding the eggs better than usual. No, they're not laying. You actually have to install a heating lamp in a chicken shed or chicken coop during the winter and have it on. Otherwise, they won't lay eggs constantly throughout. They'll kind of stop laying once it gets cold. So yeah, it's cold. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, but yeah. So Yay! Random farm knowledge. Welcome to the Pod-Thru. Oh.
So the other weird thing about the whole farm life is when Tam locks the doors.
Oh gosh, yeah. Like, no, My parents still don't lock their door to this day, which baffles me. But
I know, it's so counterintuitive.
Yeah, when you're in a small town, like, well, first of all, my parents live like
in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, they don't live on a paved road; they live off a dirt road, so you have to get off the paved road and further down. But it's very much like Rand and Tam. They don't live on a main drag and everybody's walking through all the time. I mean, who's going to come into their house? Why would they lock the door?
It blows me away.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I definitely did not grow up in a bad neighborhood. It was perfectly safe, but the idea of not locking the door, it just boggles the mind.
Yeah, it actually got me into trouble when I went to college because for the first couple weeks in college, I would constantly get locked out of my room because I would forget my key. Why would I need one? You know? And my roommates would look at me and go like,
"What's wrong with you?"
Well, at least you're locking the door. But yeah. So
that's funny.
So that's small town. We locked the door and this is kind of an indication that, the world's starting to change around Rand. I mean, Tam locked the door. What the heck? Anyway. And as we're like sitting here in this room, we get a look of how they live and what their living room looks like. Yeah. And we see that they have a shelf with books.
Right.
And we see that Rand's favorite book, The Tales of Jane Farstrider, is laying on the table.
The Travels of Jane Farstrider?
The Travels of Jane Farstrider.
That's everybody's favorite book.
Yeah.
Have you noticed?
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody reads that book, talks about the book, is carrying that book around with them. Like, I mean, there are other books, but everyone loves that one in particular in this series.
Yeah. So everybody loves Jane Farstrider. But what I'm starting to realize this time around is I can't think of anyone in the Wheel of Time universe who can't read. At least that we get a point of view from. So, like,
that's weird.
Like, it just dawned on me this time. Like, I mean, it's not that people don't read. I mean, Matt doesn't like to read. We see from his point of view, he makes comments like
he doesn't have patience for it.
He doesn't have the patience for it, but he can read.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the exception of maybe stuff that's in like other languages or the Old Tongue or something like that, like you run into in like the Ace Library, but everybody can read.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense because I mean, this is a rural like feudal possibly period of time.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it makes sense that Tam would have taught Rand to read.
Right.
And like for other main characters, like Egwene is the mayor's daughter, and we see that Bran has a bookshelf of books at the inn for the villagers to read. So it makes sense that Egwene can read, and when we meet Elaine, she's a princess, so of course she can read.
Right.
But, when you have just simple country folk like Perrin and Matt and Nynaeve, I mean, maybe Perrin, because he's a quiet guy, and, quiet people tend to like reading, maybe he would have learned. But, like, Nynaeve's a woman, so she'd be less likely to have learned to read in that society. Though she's the wisdom, so maybe that's why.
It could be.
But, like, there's no reason for Matt to have ever learned to read as just a random kid from the country.
Right, right.
So that is interesting. And that's right. Also, when the peddlers come by.
Right.
The books are always the first things to go.
Well, and not just among like the people in the Two Rivers, but in the Ale as well. Like when we get out to the waste, we see that the Ale are actually trying to get books too. So they I mean,
that's really interesting because I don't remember any real mention of school.
Nope.
Like Rand tries to start schools for like
inventors
and like more like collaboratives.
Yeah.
But not like traditional like teach children, basic education type stuff. So that's really interesting. I wonder why that is.
Well, most likely it's because Robert Jordan loves to read. I mean, we all kind of suspect that later he writes himself in as loyal as much as you can in the story.
Right.
So who is a writer and loves books. But I think this is an oddity. But I love it. I love that everybody can read. So yay.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually.
So everybody should read more.
Yeah. Read your books, kids. So let's talk about Tam and the sword.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, so first off, the first couple times that I read this, I must not have been paying attention to the description of the sword very much. I mean, the heron mark, of course, but not really the blade. So this time around, I got struck with, this is not a broadsword. This is a katana.
It took me a couple of reads to figure that out,
Yeah,
too.
like in my head, it's a broadsword. I always picture broadsword, and that's probably because, I'm part of the Western world and it's, European bias or whatever.
Yeah.
But I never picture a katana with like the curved blade and everything. That's really interesting.
And it's another interesting choice because everything seems so typically European in like the way we get presented with things so far.
Yeah, especially the Andorran society.
To have like this katana is
it's unexpected.
It is.
Yeah. So let's talk about the cost of the sword.
Yes.
How, Tam says that he paid entirely too much for it.
Yeah.
And he says, I was young then and it seemed worth the price at the time. And just, how sad he is.
Yeah, he's got, so Tam's a soldier, right? And the sorrow in his voice, it's not regret. I wouldn't call it regret. I don't think Tam regrets his past life, but it's definitely, it cost much more than he thought it was going to cost.
Yeah, and I think that's true for every soldier, really. I mean, not sword specific, but weapon specific. Like, you see all these, young men depicted as being so excited and so proud to sign up and go off to fight for their country in like World War II or the Civil War. Even, really all the way up until Vietnam. All these young men were so excited and so proud. It was this honorable thing to do their duty, and they were going to go, and they were going to show them,
fight the good fight.
Yeah, show the enemy what for. But they come back, and it's completely different. Because I think, really, it's impossible for people who are not in that position, people who are not soldiers, or even police officers. If you're in a position where you have to take a life, it is impossible for people who are not in that position to really understand what that is. I know, like you grew up, like you said, on a farm and you've slaughtered animals and things like that.
Yeah.
But like killing things, is very hard to explain.
Yes.
Like for me, I grew up in the city, so I've killed bugs, but that doesn't count. I've never killed a living thing in my entire life, and I honestly don't know if I could even kill an animal, let alone a person. Like when it's another person, that changes you permanently. There's no way that it can't. It's embedded in us. In healthy human brains, not mental illness aside, and like people who are like serial killers, whatever. There's obviously something broken within them,
right?
But for healthy human beings, taking another life goes against what is inside of us,
right?
And I'm not judging anyone who's done that. Police officers, soldiers, people who are like doing their duty. No judgment. I'm just saying that when you're in the position that you have had to kill another human being, that changes you permanently. That is a heavy, heavy price to pay. And people who have not done that can't possibly understand.
And when you're young and you're signing up to serve for your country or become a police officer or whatever that is, like no one can explain that to you.
Yeah, like you can understand it in the abstract, but you can't really understand it deep within like the center of yourself.
Right.
Which is why it's so important that we have organizations like the VA or other organizations that bring veterans together, bring soldiers together, so that they can talk to each other and be in community with each other with people who truly, truly understand. Yeah. People who have been there, who have done the same thing, and who really, really know it. So, so important.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
So, the cost of the sword.
Right. Now, I have a theory of what it's not just the cost of the sword being like having to be a soldier and loss of innocence and all those things that happen to be a soldier. There's another thing that could be happening here, but I want to wait until the next chapter to talk about it because I think it'll be more relevant there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so just sticking a pin in it.
All right. So, while talking about the cost of the sword, I keep mixing Rand and Tam. Tam says that, he doesn't even know why he still has it. Like, he's thought about giving it away. And Rand is shocked. Like, why would you ever give a sword like that away?
Yeah.
And then God damn it. Tam talks about the difference between, like, weapons and tools.
Right.
He talks about the sword being not much use in herding sheep, or you can't plow a field or harvest a crop with it. And, although later on Rand does use the sword as a tool when he hacks the shafts off the cart, in general, you would never purposely choose to use a sword as a tool. Because there's other things that make more sense. Like you would use an axe. Or you would use, whatever tool is more appropriate for the job. A sword really only is designed to do one thing.
Right.
Kill people.
Right.
And it's like, Rand has his bow and he's learned to hunt and he's on a farm, so he's killed things. But, like, you're not going to go hunting with a sword.
No.
It's different.
No, it is designed to kill a human being.
Yeah. Although Tam does say, but if I'm not just taken by a black fancy, if our luck runs sour, maybe in the next few days we'll be glad I tucked it in that old chest instead. Yes, they are.
Yes. Robert Jordan in irony once again.
Yeah.
So it's interesting as this kind of goes on. Like when the sword comes out of the chest and Tam kind of shows it off, like Rand has this thought for a second that, here, I'll just read it. He says, he always supposed that his father must have gone outside.
Right.
It's
to get to
because
Carrie Althor was
sorry,
from
that's
the farm.
a little out of context. Sorry about that. but what I'm trying to drive at is that this is a moment here where Rand realizes that his father isn't just the person that he always assumed he would be. His father has a past that existed before Rand did. And it just kind of struck me that when we're young, we don't think of our parents as actual people. They're parents.
Yeah, they're just extensions of us.
Right.
They're only in relationship to us.
Right. And like our parent, we know that our parents went to high school. We know that our parents had to be kids at one point. I mean, some of us have known our grandparents. Our parents had to be kids at some point.
Right.
But you never actually wait, no. There was actual things that actually happened that were important to my dad.
They had lives. They weren't just sitting around waiting for us to come along.
Right, because, when you're a kid, it's all about you.
Yeah. So Rand's never asked Tam about any of this.
No.
He's never thought to ask.
And even if he did, Tam doesn't necessarily want to talk about it. I mean, he did.
Well, yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, it's just an interesting change in Rand's worldview happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So speaking of Rand going outside to Rand knows that's because Carrie Althor came from outside the Two Rivers.
Right.
What do we know about Rand's mother? We know nothing. After having read the entire series, we know her name, Carrie Althor, or Kari, maybe, Althor. And we know that she came from outside the Two Rivers.
Right.
Probably from either Ilion or Andor. Based on Tam's the little that we know about Tam's past. And I think you said that you read that it says maybe in the companion that she's from Ilion.
I did some searching online and some stuff like that, and I went and found, and there's all kinds of interesting theories and stuff about her going back and forth, but nothing solid and substantial except for literally 2 sentences on her in the Wheel of Time companion.
Okay.
Which is that she was the daughter of an Ilioner merchant. And she was married to Tam Althor.
Wow.
That is
My
all
cup
the
runneth
solid
over.
and done. So I mean, and if if you have time and you want to like just spend time going down rabbit holes that have no substantiated truth proof at all, and some that are just really, really bad, you can read all kinds of interesting theories about how she was a former Aes Sedai and Tam was her warder. Things that make absolutely no sense, but they're
she
fun.
was a dark friend,
but.
Just crazy theories.
But part of the reason I want to bring that up is that I think Robert Jordan probably missed out on an opportunity here because there are so many weird fan theories out there. People are crying.
We want to know.
They want to know. Please tell us. And if you're not going to tell us, we'll make it up. And so yeah, that's
Tam's a warder. Although, you know what? I understand why people would believe that Tam was a warder because he's such a badass.
Yes, he is. But,
I mean, he kills at least 3 of the Trollocs, right?
Right.
And then he leads the rest of them into the woods. Like, he's being chased by a whole bunch more, and he, like, loses them in the woods before he meets up with Rand. Like,
right.
He is so cool.
Yeah.
So, also, something that struck me this last time I was reading, do you think Tam was a little pissed at Rand that he kept yelling and giving away his position?
In only the way that a father of a 17, 18-year-old boy can be. Yes.
Maybe he wasn't angry, but it's like, the goal was for you to run and hide. So stop yelling. Trying to lead these guys away from you.
What's that line from the 70s show the dad keeps saying? He's a dumbass. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like that it struck me. I was like, shut up, Rand, shut up. I don't think you understand the concept of hiding.
Yeah, I mean, poor kid. I mean, he's never.
I know.
It's still like the one thing. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, but Tam is so cool.
So talking more about, Tam being cool and Rand being out of his element. So Tam leads the Trollocs away and Rand, runs out into the forest and just is hiding.
Right.
And then Tam meets back up ninja style, comes up behind Rand, completely surprises him. Rand doesn't hear him or anything.
Yeah.
And so here's Tam again being a badass soldier that Rand knows nothing about.
Right. And almost gets laid out by Rand when he surprises him.
So they're both
I forgot you grew.
they're both kind of shocked about what's going on here. But something happens here. It's another thing is that subtle changes to what Rand knows about the world being true. Is Tam talks about Trollocs.
Right, he knows about Trollocs.
Literally 15 minutes ago, Trollocs in Rand's world were fiction.
Right.
Before they blew in through the door, and...
Yeah, Trollocs were fiction, and his dad was just a farmer. Then all of a sudden, there's a sword, and now everything's going crazy.
There's a sword, and Tam knows about Trollocs, and talks about, I've never met them as myself, but I've worked with people who have. And he's like, who are these people? And not only does he believe that Trollocs exist, he's got knowledge on how to combat them and fight them.
Yeah, like how they work, what their attributes are. Yeah.
So it's it's just things are not as they appear. So yeah.
So I want to take this minute to talk about how well Robert Jordan did keeping the tension in this chapter.
God, yes.
Oh my gosh. In chapter 5 and 6 also, it's all drama and tension, and you're with him, and you're scared, and what's gonna pop up, and
who knows?
Who's gonna die? He's so good at that. You're gripped in this story, and you're on pins and needles trying to figure out what's happening, and he just did such a good job.
I love reading this first book, for things like it really just keeps you going. It just keeps you biting your nails.
Especially, he's sneaking back, and it's like when he's in the darkness and he realizes that the sheep are quiet, and so he reaches out and he feels the wetness in the wool. Oh, it's so gross and so creepy and so awesome.
Yeah. Unpleasant tactile experience.
Right? So good. Okay, so back at the house, let's talk about Narg.
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 Yes.
Why? I don't understand. Okay, so Trollocs in general are stupid, mindless killing machines.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They aren't particularly smart. They are just these rampagey things,
they're kind of like sharks. Their whole purpose is to eat.
Yeah, well,
that's oversimplification.
And just be angry and destroy things. They kill for killing's sake, but they're not the brains behind the operation. You know, they don't speak English. They have their like special Trolloc language, except for Narg. Like this one random Trolloc for whatever reason. Like he's actually really smart. I mean, he pretended to be dead with the bodies of his fellows. Thinking that someone had to come back eventually. Like, that's actually a really smart plan for a Trolloc, you know? And he speaks English, kind of. I mean, okay. Right. He speaks like a Muppet monster, like the Sesame Street monsters. He's like, Cookie Monster, like, Narg no kill you, Narg want cookies, you know?
Like, no, Cookie Monster will never be the same again.
True.
Wow. Okay.
But like, why does this random Trolloc speak English? He's like the reader, writer, like poet laureate of the Trolloc world.
Narg, the poet laureate. That's the warrior poet.
Like, what is this? Because it never happens again.
You know, it's true. We never see it happen again. And this could just be another one of those examples. And there's a few of them in this book where we like, maybe this is just book one, and Robert Jordan in the very beginning of telling the story is just trying to add some creepy suspense. And to be completely honest, Narg creeped me out the first time. It was like, oh my gosh, what he's talking and he's like guttural and he's like, Narg creeped me out the first time.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's just part of building suspense.
It's not going to creep you out now that you're picturing Cookie Monster.
No, it's not. I will never be able to read this again without going, oh, we want cookie. Narg wants cookie. Yeah. Thanks for that. And
my pleasure. Oh, okay. So also in the house, did you notice? So Rand is looking around trying to figure out what supplies he can gather. And he sees that his bow has been snapped in half. It's totally broken. He like doesn't bring the, broken pieces with him. He leaves them in the house. But I could have sworn that Rand has his bow later on, like when he goes and leaves with Moraine and stuff. Doesn't he have a bow?
I'm pretty sure he does.
Like, where does that bow come from? Like, what happened?
I don't know. We're gonna have to keep track as we read through these chapters and figure out where he picks up a bow. Because I think you're right. I think he does have a bow.
Obviously he has a sword, and the sword is his main weapon. But I could have sworn he has a bow. And there's no way he would have had time to like whittle a new one.
No, whittle. Yeah. Wow.
So I don't know if you have anything else to say about this chapter, but the last thing that I want to talk about is the very end and how we end with Rand just being 100% convinced that if he can just get Tam to Emond's Field, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He's going to be saved. Nynaeve's going to heal Tam. Like, he has so much confidence that Nynaeve can heal anything and that Emond's Field is completely safe.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it reminds me of what we were talking about at the end of chapter 4. How the chapter ended on this, like, sweet optimism of there's nothing that Emond's Fielders can't handle if they do it together. And just how optimistic and innocent that was. And here it's the same thing where he feels so just... he has conviction.
Yeah.
Like, he believes with every fiber of his soul, it's 100% pure that Emond's Field is safe.
It's almost desperate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just...
Not quite, but...
And it's so sad.
Yeah.
Because this is really like his last shred of innocence. That there's one place of complete safety. And these 4 chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8, just shatter that completely. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And that brings us to chapter 6. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by Battle Ready Tea Kettles. In a world where common kitchen items could save your life from advancing hordes of shadowspawn, a simple water skin will not do. You've seen Battle Ready frying pans, but now Introducing the next generation of battle-ready kitchenware, the battle-ready tea kettle. Simply fill it with boiling liquid and hurl it at advancing enemies. Watch them scream with pain and anger as it burns. Oh God, it burns! The battle-ready tea kettle. It also makes great tea. Tea, boiling water, and sugar cubes sold separately.
So that brings us to Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is titled The Westwood, and the icon is a sword. I'm going to go ahead and try to summarize this one real quick.
All right.
Rand goes to clean Tam's wound and sees that it's barely more than a scratch, but the fever is more worse than ever. Tam is talking crazy, gripped by a series of fever dreams for this entire chapter. Rand gets his makeshift litter put together so that he can drag Tam to Emmons Field. He tries following the quarry road so that he doesn't get lost, but doesn't want to get too close because he knows that the Trollocs and Murderall are looking for him on the road, and that's the most obvious place to find him. Dragging Tam through the woods is hard, and Rand is exhausted and starving from a long day and a chaotic night. Sure enough, they have a close call when Rand spots a Murderall and a bunch of Trollocs on the quarry road searching for him and Tam. They manage to stay hidden and evade capture. Tam's fever dream ramblings get worse as Rand's desperation grows until he eventually lets slip that Rand may not be his son after all. Dun dun dun.
Drama. It's all tension, fear, and drama in this chapter.
Oh, so much drama.
So let's get started.
Okay.
All right. So Tam just has a small cut. And Rand even says, like, he has seen his father take much worse wounds and just shake it off. Just pour a little beer on it, rub some dirt on it. Like, he's fine. But the problem is that the Trolloc's blade is tainted. Like, the Trolloc's blades are made in Thakandar.
Yes.
And some of them, not all of them, but some of them get kind of stains with the evil from Thakandar.
Right.
So that's what's causing the fever. It's not that the wound is bad. It's this like evil tainted thing.
Right. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And this is the first time that Rand realizes that Tam is not invincible.
Right.
Like this whole time, I mean, we've been talking over and over again about like what a badass Tam is. Like he's amazing. And you know, he's well respected in the community. He's wise and he's strong and you know, there's a little bit of hero worship going on.
Yeah.
Completely justified hero worship because Tam's amazing. But here is the first time that Rand realizes that Tam is vulnerable, that Tam is just a man, and that Tam might die. And like, I think it's really shocking when we realize that our fathers are just people.
Absolutely.
Like, do you remember the first time you saw your dad cry?
I do. I vividly remember.
Like, wasn't that so unsettling?
It was, and even though it was a situation that wasn't necessarily we were like afraid, it was just whoa, my dad cries. Wow.
Yeah,
what?
like it's so unsettling. Like I remember, like you know, my dad had a lot of health problems when I was growing up, and I remember when he had his first major health problem, was in the hospital, and just that idea of my dad is vulnerable, my dad could die, like it's kind of rocks your world. Like it's so unsettling because you think of your, I mean, it's true with both your parents, but your father especially, you think of them as so strong and immovable.
I remember when my freshman year of college, my dad had a heart attack around Thanksgiving. And I remember how much that was just like, it really threw me off because it was like, I knew my dad was old. I knew my dad was, well, and when I was,
at the time,
when I was that young, I thought my dad was really old. Now I'm like,
like, oh man, old as a new definition now.
But yeah, like it totally like rocks your world to realize that it's very likely that, your parents could be dead right in the next, little bit. So,
yeah. So Rand has Tam's sword.
Right.
And he talks about how the sword drags at him. Like, he says in the book, when he fastened it around himself, it felt odd there. it made him feel odd. Belt and sheath and sword together only weighed a few pounds, but when he sheathed the blade, it seemed to drag at him like a great weight.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, he talks about, how many times had he dreamed about wearing a sword and having adventures. And there's this difference between fantasy and reality. Like he fantasized about owning a sword and being a warrior and going off to battle and having great adventures, like, many kids do.
Yeah.
But the reality of it, he has already killed something with this sword. Mm-hmm. True, it was by pure luck, like pure happenstance. But the fact remains, like, he killed something. He got blood all over himself. Like, he's experienced that feeling of taking a life.
And what comes with it.
Yeah, and so the reality of having this sword, the reality of having this weapon attached to his body is, like, weighing him down. And he shakes it off and, gets on with what he's doing. But there's a difference, how many times throughout the series do they talk about, I dreamed of great adventure. I dreamed of going off like they do in the stories, but I didn't know that it was going to mean like sleeping under a rock in the rain and being starving and saddle sore.
No one ever talks about bunions in the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to kind of draw our attention to another thing that happens here in this book.
Okay.
Like as they are making their way, Rand pulls Tam up to the road and the murder doll and the Trollocs show up and so they're searching for them. And it's a scene right out of the Fellowship of the Ring.
It is.
Anyone who's read the Fellowship and read the Lord of the Rings knows that scene on the roadside with the hobbits all scared out of their wits as the Dark Rider is there, and we find out later it's a ring wraith, but and it's going on there. But Frodo feels that sense of hatred and like intensity, just like Rand does here, and we're just going to call it what it is. It's an homage.
Yeah, it's an homage, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, and we've already talked about, like I think you had said earlier that Tolkien is the father, the grandfather of all modern fantasy. So
it makes sense,
yeah.
Especially in this first book. Also, talking about the hatred that Rand feels.
Yes.
Later on, we see, I think Moraine tells Rand that channelers can get a sense of shadow spawn.
Yes.
Do you think that's what this is? The reason he feels this like hatred and evil coming off the Myrddraal, is that because he's a channeler, or is that just what Myrddraals do?
I think that's just what Myrddraals do.
Okay.
Land makes comments later on talking about like even the greatest of warriors, felt fear at the gaze of the eyeless and things like that.
Yeah, but this is hate. Like he feels the Myrddraal hates everything. Is that the same thing?
I don't know. You might be onto something there. I don't think Rand has channeled yet, so I don't know if his like spidey senses have kicked in. But he has a potential.
Yeah.
So maybe you're right. Maybe that's why he feels the hatred. But no, I'm gonna back off of that because both Piran and Matt describe the same feeling of hate.
Oh, did they? Okay, I didn't remember that part.
So yeah, now that I hear myself saying it out loud, you might be onto something there, but I don't know if it is.
Okay, which is interesting to think about.
Okay.
So we should talk about the fever dreams.
Yes. All right. So many fever dreams in this chapter.
Four major
groups. Yeah. Yeah. So like the first kind of set is Tam starts talking about his wife.
Yeah.
Carrie.
I'm gonna go with Kari.
Survey says. We'll go with Carrie.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Carrie.
It doesn't matter.
Fire and brimstone, Carrie. Okay. So we hear him talk about,
how beautiful she
was and all the other stuff. And as the fever dreams go forward further and further, we hear more about her.
Yeah. Did you catch the part where Rand is saying, Mother wants you to be quiet or needs you to be quiet?
It was so heartbreaking.
He has a catch in his throat and he can't speak for a second.
Yeah, because Tam thinks
sad.
she's there. Tam thinks he's her. And I guess because they both have red hair. But it's and Rand's response is basically to like, let's just go with it. Mother wants you to be quiet.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to get him to be quiet so they don't get
Yeah. Again, don't give away your position. Now Rand is finally realizing to shut the hell up. Should have figured that out in the last chapter.
Turned, huh? Yeah. Not so fun on the other foot, is that shoe? Yeah. So we get some dreams talking about Carrie. And then we get a lot of information about the Ale War.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Now we find out that Tam fought in it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Ale for a second. So Tam says they called them savages. The fool said they could be swept aside like rubbish. Okay.
Wow.
The people of Randland have this really stupid habit of underestimating the Ale.
Yeah.
Like, we learn that the Ale came in and just buried these people.
Yeah.
Just kicked their asses.
They could not be
till
stopped.
Next Sunday. Like they were this horde of destruction. And Tam talks about like how many people died before they returned back, blah blah blah. Well, that's the thing.
I'm sorry.
Though.
Just you have to cue the Mongoltage. I'm sorry.
Little crash course history reference.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But like that's the thing. The Ale weren't turned back.
Nope.
The people of Randland did not win against the Ale. The Ale came in specifically to kill Layman.
Yep.
They fought their way to Layman, they killed him, and then they turned around and they went
back home.
They were not defeated. They were not turned back. They were not scared away. They were done with their job, and they chose not to keep killing. And that is that simple.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys, show some respect. You need to stop underestimating these people because they're going to kill you dead. Like, seriously, stop underestimating the Ale. Come on.
Yeah. And so we also learned through these images and talking about the Ale War, we hear Tam talking about.
It's not just me.
No, it's not just you. We hear the mention of Avendasora for the first time, the tree.
Right.
So
and Layman's sin.
So when we talk about Layman's sin, here's it's not just the sin of pride. Here's the sin. The Ale bring a peace offering to the Korean for the first time in history.
Yeah,
these
Tam
people
says these
reach
people
out.
who never offered peace brought this gift of peace.
And they were gonna. It was like a water agreement, and there's nothing more sacred to an ale.
Yeah,
and so.
Well, and what makes this tree special is it doesn't seed. Like they
only
had
one
a
tree.
cutling of it that they gave to the Krinians,
Koreanians?
Whatever.
Yeah.
People of Carrion. But it's not like the tree will seed and grow more trees. It was just this one cutling that's made it so special. And they had 500 years of peace. The only nation in Randland that had peace with the Ale. And then Layman, dumbass, cuts it down.
Right.
And why?
So he can build a throne out of it.
Oh, that's just so bad. So
the
bad.
only other living Avendasora on the planet, that's the only one that's not in the waste, he cuts it down and makes a goddamn throne out of it.
Now, that's not what's currently the Sun Throne, right?
No.
Like that got destroyed.
No, because the Ale went and they practically destroyed Carinian.
Yeah, they burned a lot of it.
They burned a lot of it. And anyone who was around knew to get rid of that throne as fast as possible. We don't ever want the Ale to know this. No.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think so, but I can't remember.
Yeah, it did not survive that war.
Okay.
So we have that happening, and then
the last
fever dream. Gosh, this one's the mind blower. So Tam's trying to escape the battle, just the heat and the smell, the stench, because battles are, especially these kind of battles, are just ugly and horrific and gory.
Yeah, like that's one thing that when you're watching the movies or reading the books, you don't think about the smell of the blood and the sweat and the body odor and the fecal matter, because when you make corpses, they make messes.
Yes, they do. Like if you think, just think of
gross.
just think of the movie Braveheart for a second, and then think of what the battlefield smelt like 15, 20 minutes later. No, absolutely not. No. So that's what he's trying to escape.
He goes to get some fresh air.
And he's on the side of the dragon mount and finds a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he talks about how some of the ale women fight with the men. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't understand why she would have been there, like a pregnant woman, but whatever, he doesn't understand ale. And so she's dead in the snow, and then this baby is crying.
Yeah. And then he takes it home to his wife.
He talks about, you always wanted a child, and, we couldn't have one, and Rand's a good name, and blah, blah, blah.
So I wanted to take a moment to pull that pin out that I said, let's put a pin in it later.
Okay.
So we talked about the price that Tam paid for his sword.
Yeah.
And I read something really recently it was kind of interesting that historians think that when a lot of these people came back from battling in this kind of like hand-to-hand combat ages, they would come back from the field, they'd go to do their farming, and they wouldn't be able to have kids because of the injuries they sustained.
Oh.
For various different reasons, different kinds of injuries, these men weren't able to father children.
Really? From the battle?
From just doing the battle. Also, Robert Jordan served in Vietnam, and so much crap happened to soldiers that came back from Vietnam. We don't even want to talk about that.
Like Agent Orange and other chemicals.
And all kinds of mysterious things that were never really figured out. So it's a very common thing in all ages of warfare that when soldiers come back from the field, they don't always have the ability to still have children.
Huh.
So maybe the price that he never expected to pay as a young man going into the army of Ilion, or as a young man pursuing the path of a blade master, was that the end result would be he wouldn't be able to have kids.
Wow, and that's the cost of the sword. That is really interesting. Yeah.
So that's just something that kind of struck me this read through. I ran across that theory, and it just all kinds of stuff made sense. Like the comment that he makes to Carrie, the reason he would be so willing to just take this kid and bring it to his wife, knowing it's not just that she always wanted a wife. Maybe not she always wanted a baby, but maybe there's more behind it, that he knew that his choices led to them not being able to.
Right.
So it just brought this whole new layer of complexity to the situation.
That's really interesting. I had never heard of that before. That is super interesting.
I can't prove it.
Right.
But
well, I mean, yeah. It's cryptic. I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Cool. Yay.
So I don't know if you had anything else to talk about for this chapter. I just have one more thing.
No, I'm talked out for this one. Okay.
So while Tam was talking about Avendasora, Rand thinks of it as, it's a tree of legend. It's not real. It's just a myth.
Yeah.
Next, he might. Here's the quote that he has. Next, he might actually meet the Green Man, or an Ogier giant, or a wild black-veiled aleman. It's like, yes, actually, Rand, you will. All one of these stories are real.
And you will encounter every single one of them in this book.
Yeah, I don't even know if I could even call this foreshadowing. This is like Jordan hitting us over the head with a blunt object. But yeah, I just thought that was really cute. Absolutely. Done and done.
And speaking of done, that ends chapters 5 and 6 of The Eye of the World.
All right. That was a lot.
Yes,
a lot happened.
A lot went down.
So in next week's episode, we will cover chapters 7 and 8, where Rand discovers that safe harbors aren't all they're cracked up to be, and even Emmons Field isn't untouchable. He makes a deal with an Aes Sedai and finds out what the Trollocs were really after. We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate us and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you catch your podcasts. Leave us a positive review. It really helps us out. Please. Yeah. Or, you can tweet us at Pod-Thru or send us an email at whatpodthru@gmail.com. Give us comments, thoughts, corrections to anything we said today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.